Hello Internet, I've got a new video for you today. This one is about one of my favorite authors, the one and only Stephen King. So one thing that you should know about me is that I love horror stories. I have ever since I was a kid, and one of my favorite horror authors is obviously Stephen King, who is one of the most well-known authors, even outside of horror, I would say in history. He's been going for decades, and he's still writing as we speak. So I first started reading Stephen King in high school with The Shining, and I would consider him one of my favorite authors, and also one of the people who have influenced my own writing the most, just in reading his characters and his writing style and his plot structure. I think it helped me define my own voice when I'm writing. And even when I'm just reading, I've always enjoyed his character work and his just the way that you get into the minds of the characters that he writes, as well as the horror aspect, which is not evident in all of his stories, but is one of his most well-known traits, is his scary stories. With that being said, I have not read a whole lot of his books. You'll be surprised to know I've actually read very few of his stories at this time. Part of that is due to me being such a sporadic reader, going years upon years without reading anything. And going along with that, the other reason would be that I have such a back catalog of things I do want to read that I have to space things out. So all those things combined, I have only read a handful of his stories. And so I definitely want to read more. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about my top 5 Stephen King books that I most want to read. This is not the only ones that I plan to read. I don't plan to read all of his stories, but I do plan to get through a decent list of them. But these are the top 5 ones that I want to read the most. And this is also not including anything from the Dark Tower series. I'm currently in the middle of that. I have about 3 books to go, so obviously if I included those, this would be a very predictable list. These are also not in any particular order, so let's start things off with one of his most well-known and most well-loved stories, The Stand. This is not a horror story, I don't believe. I believe it's more of a science fiction, post-apocalyptic story with multiple characters. It's very long. If I'm not mistaken, it's one of his longest books, which doesn't bother me at all. I have read it, which is in itself pretty long. Like I said, is one of his most well-loved books. A lot of people who are fans of King list this as their favorite of his. I would say this and it would be the most that I see at the top of lists for the favorite. And considering this is not a horror novel, and King is mostly known as a horror writer, I would consider that a boon for the story itself. So I'm looking forward to getting to this one. Another one that is not a horror story that is also extremely and almost universally loved is his time travel story 11/22/63. This is obviously about the JFK assassination, and it involves time travel. I believe it's also a pretty heavy romance story. But again, I've heard basically nothing but good things about this one, so I'm looking forward to get to this one as well. I am sort of fascinated by the JFK assassination conspiracy theories, so I'm not sure how much of that is going to play into the story or not, but I'm looking forward to getting to it either way. One that sort of flies under the radar is another big long book of his that has also been adapted into a TV series. This one is Under the Dome. Until recently, I wouldn't have given this one a second thought. I saw the trailers for the series on whatever ABC or CBS when it came out years ago. It never really interested me, and the book never really grabbed onto me either. But looking through some videos on YouTube of Stephen King readers, they list this one as a pretty solid entry. And so something about that has got to be pretty good. This one is obviously about a town that is set under a dome somehow, and then people have to get out of it. I don't know. It reminds me of the Simpsons movie. But yeah, it sounds pretty good. A lot of people have said it's really one of the better ones. Getting into one of his scarier ones, or one of his older ones. This one is Pet Sematary. I saw the movie when I was probably in junior high. It might have been one of the earliest King movies that I ever saw. I think it's a really good adaptation as well. But yeah, it was a pretty disturbing movie back then. I haven't watched it for many years. I don't know how it holds up, but it is an interesting one. A lot of people list this one as the scariest story that Stephen King has ever written, so that intrigues me. I also have pets, so it's relevant to my life experiences or something. So I'm looking forward to getting to the source material for this one, and I have little doubt that I'm going to like it, because I did like the movie. And the last one on my list is Duma Key. This one is relatively newer, I believe. I actually had not heard of it until a couple of months ago. But again, it's another one that a lot of booktubers have listed as one of Stephen King's best works, at least in his current era. So it's another one that kind of flies under the radar. I don't know the exact plot. I haven't looked at it. I don't really want to look at it until I start reading it. But it's something about a guy moving to Florida and painting or something. But it sounds like it's going to be a good one. It comes highly recommended. From what little I have heard, it sounds like it might be something right up my alley, so I'm hoping that it will live up to that expectation. And there goes the air conditioner. So I guess we're done here. But yeah, that is 5 Stephen King books that I most want to read next. I do have a few more others on my list that I want to get to at some point, but these are my top priority. If you are looking to read one of these as well, leave me a comment. Yeah, that's gonna do it. Thank you for watching, and